Hey, what up YouTube? Welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. In today's video, I will be going through my predictions for the upcoming National League season. Although, feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, your predictions in the comment section down below. There'll be a holiday, and then I'll come back with the rest of the EFL and Premier League predictions afterwards. Hopefully most of them before the season starts. Maybe one or two of them might have to be afterwards. Unusually for me, I like to get them done before, but it is what it is. It's been quite a tough few days to weeks and stuff to sort out when to do the filming and stuff, especially with the second channel being online as well at the moment. So we're going to start off with 24th, and I've got Ebbsfleet United. Although they absolutely bossed the National League South, you just need to look at the last few seasons. And we always see the jump up from a regional to national football can be quite a difficult one. It strains the club's budgets much more. It's always to actually keep hold of the players can be quite difficult, especially in non-league for such a large rotation of players as it is. But I think they will score plenty of goals because they've kept their top striker from last season. But I query whether the defence really is good enough to keep them up. 23rd, Rochdale. This team is in freefall, which I'm pretty certain there are some dodgy affairs happening behind the scenes. They're just not really available to the public. It's hard to find out much about the owners and stuff. I look at the squad, and they're a right mixed hodgepodge of players that really just don't work together. Jimmy McNulty has no experienced name, and this isn't the league to experiment in. It's a scrap and is difficult for runs to be strung together without good teamwork. I mean, it's all about the team, not individual names, I tend to find at this level. Therefore, they will struggle to adjust and be relegated for a second season running. Also, the points deduction of 6 points for an attempted forced takeover was given a 2-year suspension. However, I don't know if it will still apply, seeing that they aren't in the EFL anymore, and it was given by the EFL. But the National League could still apply the points deduction. We'll see. I'm not sure. It seems to have gone quite quiet recently about that, but I don't think it was ever said it was dropped. So we'll see. 22nd, Oldham Athletic. Another club in severe difficulties from Greater Manchester. They have had new owners, but they are a bit of an unknown quantity. And being local doesn't mean that they'll invest heavily in the squad. David Unsworth is also not that experienced. He did prevent a consecutive relegation his first season round at Oldham. But they also don't seem to be recruiting that heavily. So I think there is really a lack of ambition at that club. And that can only really end up one way, really downhill. If you're not aiming to be promoted and a club the size of Oldham, then you've got to be questioning where the motives lie. 21st, FC Halifax Town. There's always a club which has an unexpectedly bad season. Also, Millington, the manager, has never kicked a ball in his life, and therefore it's more like football manager of the game, like FM, than an actual manager. And trying to implement his tactics may not prove that fruitful, actually. I know he won the FA Trophy, but let's be realistic. Teams don't tend to put their first team in that competition until the latter stages of it. Also, Millington has really only been an assistant in his life. The squad is also only littered with a few stars, and some of those likely to leave by the end of the summer. Luke Summerfield being the notable one I picked out, but I reckon there'll be a few more to leave as well. 20th, Altrincham. I can't really pinpoint a star player in their ranks, and the overall team isn't really of National League standard. However, they know when the going gets tough how to drag out a result, and Phil Parkinson knows how to get the best out of Alty, but it will be a struggle for them this season. 19th, Kidderminster Harriers. The issue last season with Harriers was the amount of goals scored, where the strikers were nowhere near fruitful enough. They only scored 49 goals, which was actually 18th overall in the National League North of the overall goal scoring charts, and hence they did bring in Kieran Phillips, who actually scored 14 goals last season in 31 appearances, which is almost a goal every 2 games. However, it is a step up for him and the whole squad, really. Therefore, they will need to adjust relatively quickly, but they, I think, will just scrape survival as well. 18th, Maidenhead United. Yet another team who doesn't score quite enough goals. However, at the moment, they haven't really brought in a quality striker. I'm sure they will do by the end of the season, but not well. Yeah, at some point before the end of the season. I think they will marginally improve due to the signings of the defenders of Kevin Locko, Lewis Kinsella, and Craig Ross, all quite experienced at either this level or the league below. Therefore, they'll have less goals conceded, so maybe a few more points than last time around. 17th, Gateshead. I do believe they slightly overachieved last season, but that was only due to a brief good spell in form that lifted them out of a relegation scrap. But from what I've seen of them live, they were quite woeful in defence, especially the manager, Mike Williamson, who I think does really entangle up his boots. This league is now much fitter and faster than it has ever been before, and having a 39-year-old lead for defence isn't going to win that many games, or it certainly won't result in clean sheets. However, they do have a very passionate fan base. I mean, one of the best fan bases I've seen of them, probably South Shield, in terms of fans are always they're chanting throughout the whole 90 minutes. They do get behind the club, and they have a fairly decent squad overall. So they will secure safety relatively comfortably come the end of the season. 16th, Oxford City. They dominated the playoffs, I mean, literally, in order to get to this league. Some of that form will carry them fairly far in probably the first part of the season, but they'll drop down into a bit of a scrap at the end. However, the quality of the squad is really enough to stay up. 15th, Aldershot Town. A team that seems to be always towards the bottom end of the table and involved in a scrap to avoid relegation. However, I reckon that experience will be enough for them to push quite substantially away from that pack before the end of the season. Tommy Widrington, for example, look at the manager, has a win percentage of 37.66%, which is enough to finish in this position. Although over recent seasons, he's always actually been around more like the 40%, so we could see the shots actually much higher up the table than I've potentially predicted. It's hard to see, though. 14th, AFC Fylde. The Lancashire outfit are back and are now much more used to the pace of this league. Plus, the winning streak will be a breath of confidence, really. So, I reckon solid mid-table finish. 13th, Dorking Wanderers. A team who is really on the up and no one knows how far they'll go. So it will probably be further improvement this season. Mark White is a very successful manager, gaining 12 promotions in 23 seasons, taking Dorking from tier 17 to this level. And he's also the owner, so knows where finances are at best. If we're being honest, their squad isn't really this league standard, but the team spirit is so strong that they'll finish mid-table. As I'll keep on coming back throughout this video. It's not about who you have in terms of star players. It's really that team spirit at the end of the day to see where you end up. 12th, Hartlepool United. Getting relegated is always really a double-edged sword. On one hand, there are a high level of expectations from the fans to overrun the league, and due to the presumed larger budget than the rest of the league. Whereas on the other side, there is usually a reason for the relegation from the league above, and there's a negative mindset within the squad. That could pose the potential for consecutive relegation. But I've got it neatly in the middle of this for pools, and I'm going to smack them bang in the middle of the table. I think they'll start slow, but they'll gradually build. But I think it's going to be quite a boring season, maybe a very boring one. 11th, Woking. We know that they did well last season, but it was an incredibly lucky season that they don't usually have. Normally, they're more mid-table. Plus, all the signings they brought in are quite old. The signings they brought in has an average age of 29.6, whereas they lost players of an average age of 26.1. This has overall risen the average age to 29 years old, which is very old for an average, bearing in mind that's like the middle age of the squad. Ultimately, I think it will be hard for them to play at that intensity as last season. They were quite energetic, and exciting to watch at times last season, but that intensity probably isn't going to be the same, especially a bit older legs, and I think they will struggle a bit more. It's a grueling campaign. They have at least 50 games, probably as expected, per season. But the experience they have, I think, will put them still in a fighting position to potentially. They'll always look like an outside shot to get to the playoffs, and you can never bet against the Cardinals, really, can you? 10th, Southend United. Yet again, another season and another time the Shrimps are an unknown quantity when it comes to predicting them. Having had another winding up petition recently, I've lost count of how many they've had now. And the construction of the stadium has crippled the club with debt. And there's to be serious questions about whether this club could even last another season. I know there was a great sort of whip around by other clubs at this level. So York City gave them quite a lot of donations, I think £12,000. There was a few other people who have done whip around, and they've managed to get around about 1.5 million. So that should be enough to pay the players and some of the backstage staff for 3 or 4 months and maybe try and work way towards that debt. However, there has also been talks of new owners on a fairly regular basis. I've heard about this, and the squad I think is still good enough to be very competitive in this league. So I'm going to put them in a competitive 10th place finish. 9th, York City. A team on the resurgence, really, with the club previously being a strong lower EFL team, sort of League 1, League 2. They're always quite strong, a good, worth watching sort of team. And the survival of the club last season proved that they were capable of performing this level. And this season they brought in huge waves of improvements. Depot Akinyemi, Callum Harriott, Callum Howe, Tyler Cordner, Levi Ando, Xander Zaziba, Quevin Castro, and David Stockdale, just to name a few. I've butchered some of their names. I apologise. But that's like a good solid improvement on their team from last season. And these acquisitions, along with the new owners, raises the overall team's positioning to one that can compete at really the top end of the table for me. And they've got that amazing new stadium of the LNER Stadium, which looks amazing. It's new. It's much better than the old Bootham Crescent. It's one of them stadiums which have got sort of everything going for it recently. It's definitely an EFL one in the waiting. 8th, Wealdstone. Another team that seems to be going from strength to strength. Stuart Maynard has done a great job at the Stone so far. The team also has an incredibly close link to some of the top pro EFL teams, such as Charlton Athletic, for example. Hence why they can add some good loanees. Maybe it will come a little later in the transfer window when the EFL teams have sort of had a chance to look at some of their academy players and think, yes, he needs some match day experience at non-league or something where they're going is a bit more tough and stuff. I know Kwaku Adoru has gone to from Derby, has gone to Rochdale to gain more experience. And they've also retained a total of 16 players, which is very good for this level, and that team spirit can be important in challenging towards the top end of the table. 7th, Dagenham and Redbridge. A team that has always been combating towards the playoff positions, and there hasn't been too much movement. And as I just mentioned, that can actually reap more success than wholesale changes. Ben Stevens did a decent job with Eastleigh, especially in his first year at that job, where he reached the playoffs in 2019, I think it was. I can see a very similar situation really playing out with the Daggers this season. 6th, going from Stevens' old club, I've gone with Eastleigh. Firstly, the signing of Scott Quidgley is immense for a club at this level. Having decided to leave Stockport after their successful season last season, it does sort of blow my mind that he took the step down. But whenever he plays in the National League, he always scores bucketful of goals, like way into double figures. Ludwig Francilete also comes with a fair bit of League 2 experience and is a great corner kick taker. Aidan Barlow also comes with experience from the league above, and Lee Hodgson comes in with a vast amount of experience at international football, making 24 appearances for Northern Ireland's first team. Enzio Boldwine has played almost 300 times in League Two, or that might be National League. I can't remember now. I could go on, but these transfers are all very positive, hence why I think they'll make the playoffs. Fifth, Chesterfield. Right, lots of, if not everybody, is saying that the Spyrites are going to destroy this league. But that very rarely happens, that we get a team dominating this league. I know it happened last season. That's quite a rarity. And especially at Chesterfield, they're always towards the top end of the table, but they never dominate. Look at last season. They reached the playoff finals, but you sort of always never got a feeling throughout that they actually managed to maintain a title charge. And hence why they will reach the playoffs this season, with Paul Cook having vast amounts of experience of achieving playoff finishes, but not quite make it. They have brought in some big names, don't get me wrong, Will Grigg and Tom Naylor, but they are substantially dropping down the pyramid to actually come to this club. And so I think it does get a bit of time getting used to the league. It's a very different dynamic. You've still got, I think there's a couple of semi-pros out there, maybe, still in the league. But when they get firing, they'll reach the playoffs comfortably, really. Fourth, Solihull Moors. Last season was a massive blip for the club and was quite unexpected, really, to finish 15th. But normally they are in the playoff picture, especially with that always seeming to get a core group of loanees from either Birmingham City, Aston Villa, and Coventry City. They always seem to get a good solid 3 or 4 through the door from these clubs. I fully expect for some of the more of the loanees to come during this season as well. Haven't really done so much in the transfer department yet. But Andy Wing is used to promotion, and he left Banbury in a really healthy position in the National League South. And, or was it North? I think it was South. And that winning mentality can be applied to any league, really. Hence why I think they'll do much better this season. Third, Bromley. Andy Woodman is very successful at Bromley, having finished in the playoffs of 2 out of the 3 seasons he was manager at the club. And in that one season he didn't reach the playoffs, he finished 10th, which is still quite respectable. And he won the FA Trophy with the Ravens. Teddy Sherman-Lowe comes in on loan from Chelsea as well. A fantastic acquisition considering he played for England during the 2023 Under-20s World Cup. Goalkeeper Grant Smith comes in with 173 appearances in the National League, as well as a promotion from League Two to League One with Lincoln. Josh Pashley did a decent job with Dover, shown by their dismal shipping of goals once he left the club. Although Cole Kepekwa, maybe, doesn't have much experience, he's a versatile player capable of playing at left back or centre back, and he's very strong with a good left foot. And Sam Woods comes in as a more rotational player, but still provides good depth at midfield. Second, Barnet. One of the best stadiums, I think, in non-league. There's obviously Chesterfield Stadium out there, York's I mentioned earlier, but I do think the Hive is quite a good one. And they do seem to bring in some wonder kids to become competitive at the very top end of the table. Dean Brennan has a wealth of experience in the league with a win percentage of 45.05%. And has also experienced promotion twice, and really has always had his teams battling towards the very top echelons of whatever league they are in. A player that I'll pick out, though, is Harry Pritchard, who is so versatile that he was described as a jack of all trades who can fulfill any role in the midfield or the attack. So, for those which have been counting, you'll know that I've put in first place, winning the league, Boreham Wood. Although this club always reaches the playoffs, it seems I do have a bit of a feeling this season that it will be a much better one with almost a flawless season, especially seeming Luke Garrard has led the club for such a long time. And now the key issues and how to overcome them are really in his mind, and he knows how to deal with it. Therefore, with much positive acquisitions of Ghanaian international Kwesi Appiah, Mo Sagaf, who played almost every game in the league for Dagenham last season. Fan favourite Angelo Balanta has returned, having an average of a goal almost every 3 or 4 games. And Tammy Abraham's brothers, Timmy Abraham, that is generally they name their kids Tammy and Timmy. Timmy Abraham is a player who they signed. I thought it was a joke at first, but no, it's an actual signing. And we know how good Tammy Abraham is. If Timmy Abraham is even a fraction of his ability, then they'll certainly reap a lot of goals going forward, I think, for the upcoming season. But these are my predictions for the National League coming up. Please subscribe if you're new around here. Hope you enjoyed the video. Comment down below your predictions. I'll be around probably in about a week and a half with my EFL predictions. But goodbye for now.